The impossible defense. The emergency beacon lit up every screen in the Galactic Security Council headquarters. High Counselor Thrace, a towering being made of living crystal, stared at the message with growing disbelief. The Karveth Empire was requesting immediate assistance. The Karveth Empire never requested assistance from anyone. For 400 years, the Karveth had been the undisputed military power of the Eastern Spiral Arm. Their generals wrote the textbooks that every species used in their military academies. Their fleet commanders had never lost a single engagement. When the Karveth went to war, other species simply surrendered and negotiated terms. Fighting them was considered pointless. Now their beacon was flashing red with maximum urgency. Thrace called an emergency session. Within hours, representatives from every major species gathered in the Grand Chamber. The room buzzed with worried conversations. If the Karveth needed help, something unprecedented was happening. General Vornkai of the Karveth Empire appeared via hologram. He was a massive being, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor plating that had deflected weapons fire in 100 battles. His forearms had commanded fleets across a dozen star systems. He was a legend among military professionals. He looked exhausted. His armor was scorched and cracked. One of his arms hung limp at his side. Most shocking of all, his eyes were red and swollen. The translator struggled with his words because his voice kept breaking. "Council members," Vornkai began, his voice shaking. "I am here to report a military crisis unlike anything in recorded history. 6 weeks ago, we discovered an unauthorized mining operation in Sector 7. Standard procedure demanded we claim the resources and relocate the miners to proper territory. We sent a standard enforcement fleet. 12 warships, more than enough for a mining colony." He paused and his hands trembled. The fleet never returned. We sent search and rescue. They found wreckage, but it made no sense. Our ships had been destroyed by primitive kinetic weapons. Metal slugs fired from chemical propulsion systems. Technology we abandoned 3,000 years ago. We thought perhaps the miners had found ancient weapons caches. Thrace leaned forward. "What happened next, General?" "We sent a proper military fleet. 40 ships, veteran crews. I commanded them personally." Vornkai's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "We were completely unprepared for what we found." The hologram changed to show footage from the battle. Council members watched as Karveth warships approached a small asteroid colony. The colony had minimal defenses. A few outdated weapons platforms, some cargo ships. Nothing that should trouble a military fleet. The Karveth fleet moved into standard formation. They broadcast the usual surrender demand. The colony responded with a single word in a language the translators had never encountered before. The word was defiance. What happened next made several council members gasp. The cargo ships suddenly accelerated toward the Karveth fleet at impossible speeds. They were not trying to escape. They were attacking. Each ship was loaded with refined metals from the mining operation. When they impacted the Karveth shields, the kinetic energy was devastating. But that was just the beginning. The asteroid colony itself began moving. The inhabitants had attached massive engines to several asteroids and turned them into weapons. Rocks the size of mountains drifted into the Karveth formation, forcing ships to break formation to avoid collision. Then the real attack began. Small craft launched from hidden bays inside the asteroids. They were crude vessels, barely spaceworthy, but they moved with precision that confused Karveth targeting systems. The craft released clouds of debris. Not weapons, just garbage. Metal fragments, ice chunks, mining waste. At orbital velocities, this trash became devastating shrapnel that shredded Karveth hull plating. Vornkai's voice narrated over the footage. "We attempted to regroup, but they had planned for that. Every movement we made, they had anticipated. When we tried to retreat to long range, they pursued in those suicide craft. When we tried to close distance, they fled into the asteroid field where our large ships could not follow. When we sent fighters after them, they led our pilots into traps. The footage showed Karveth fighters chasing enemy craft through narrow asteroid tunnels. Suddenly, the enemy ships would brake impossibly hard using what appeared to be controlled explosions. The Karveth fighters, traveling too fast to stop, would crash into obstacles that the enemy had pre-positioned. Nets made of mining cable, sheets of reflective metal that blinded sensors, clouds of adhesive foam that gummed up engine intakes. They turned their entire mining operation into a weapon, Vornkai said. Every tool, every piece of equipment, every supply had a military application we never imagined. They used industrial lasers as point defense. They weaponized their water supply by venting it into space where it froze into ice shards. They even used their food stores. Food? Counselor Vesh asked in confusion. Vornkai nodded slowly. They packed refined sugar and flour into containers with oxygen supplies and ignited them near our ships. The explosion damaged our sensors. We later learned this is called a dust explosion. They turned baking ingredients into bombs. The council chamber was silent. Every being present was trying to comprehend warfare at this level of creativity. Who are these beings? Thrace demanded. What species fights this way? They call themselves humans, Vornkai replied. We have since learned they come from a planet designated in our charts as Terra. It is classified as a Class 13 death world. The classification is being revised to Class 14. Perhaps Class 15. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Class 13 meant the planet was extraordinarily hostile to life. Class 14 or 15 meant it should not support intelligent life at all. The humans have no natural weapons, Vornkai continued. No armor plating, no venom, no enhanced strength. They are fragile beings who can be killed easily, but they refuse to die easily. During one boarding action, I personally witnessed a human take 3 plasma shots to the torso and continue fighting for another 40 seconds. 40 seconds. With holes burned through vital organs, how? Someone asked. Adrenaline, Vornkai said. Their bodies flood with a chemical that overrides pain and survival instinct. They have evolved to fight through injuries that would incapacitate any of us. One of my soldiers reported fighting a human who had lost significant blood volume and was clearly dying. But the human used those final moments to arm an explosive device that killed 6 of my troops. The hologram shifted to show a new image, a young human female in a damaged pressure suit. She was smiling at the camera covered in blood and burns, making a gesture with her hand that the translators could not interpret. This is Commander Elena Vasquez, Vornkai said. She leads the human defense force at the mining colony. After we lost 40 ships, I requested negotiation. She agreed to meet. The scene changed to show the interior of a neutral station. Vornkai sat across a table from the human commander. She was tiny compared to him, barely reaching his lower chest in height. She wore a simple uniform with incomprehensible symbols on it. Her hair was pulled back and she had a scar across one cheek. General Vornkai, Vasquez said in the recording, her voice calm and professional. You have attacked our colony 3 times now. We have destroyed or damaged 70% of your assault force. We can continue this indefinitely. Our people specialize in making do with limited resources. This is what we do. Vornkai's recorded voice was strained. Commander, your tactics violate every convention of civilized warfare. You use deception. You booby-trap your own positions. You employ psychological warfare. This is not how modern species conduct military operations. Vasquez tilted her head slightly. General, modern species apparently conduct military operations against unarmed mining colonies. So forgive us if we are not concerned about your conventions. On Earth we have a saying, all is fair in love and war. You brought war to us. We responded with every tool we have. But the waste, Vornkai protested. The inefficiency. You sacrifice ships and equipment. You expose your people to terrible risks. Proper warfare minimizes casualties through superior technology and tactics. Vasquez leaned forward. General, let me tell you about Earth warfare. We have been fighting each other for our entire history, thousands of years of constant war. We have developed tactics for every situation. Fighting from superior positions, fighting from inferior positions, fighting when outnumbered, fighting when surrounded. We have tactics for urban combat, wilderness combat, underwater combat, underground combat, and zero-gravity combat. We have been preparing for war in space since before we left our planet. The recording showed Vornkai's confusion. But why? If you fight each other so much, why have you not destroyed yourselves? Because we also learned how to stop fighting and work together, Vasquez replied. We learned negotiation, diplomacy, and cooperation. But we never forgot how to fight. And we never will, because our planet tried to kill us for millions of years before we even started fighting each other. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. Images flashed past, massive storms that could level cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that darkened the sky, animals with claws and teeth designed for killing, diseases that wiped out millions, temperature extremes that ranged from boiling to freezing. This is our home, Vasquez said. Every day on Earth is a fight for survival. Every generation of humans has faced extinction-level threats. We are not stronger than you, General. We are not smarter, but we are more desperate. And desperate people find solutions that comfortable people never imagine. The recording ended. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Thrace finally spoke. General Vornkai, what is your current status? Vornkai seemed to age before their eyes. We have negotiated a ceasefire. The humans keep their colony. We have withdrawn all forces from Sector 7. Our military is demoralized. Our tactics are obsolete. Our soldiers are afraid. He paused and his voice broke again. I have commanded armies for 200 years. I have never lost. I have never retreated. I have never felt fear in combat. The humans taught me fear, counselors. They taught all of us fear. One of the younger council members, a being named Kellis from a peaceful merchant species, spoke up nervously. What do the humans want? Are they planning to invade? To conquer? Vornkai shook his head. That is the most disturbing part. They want nothing except to be left alone. They have no interest in conquest. They simply want to mine their asteroids and be left in peace. But if anyone threatens them, they will respond with overwhelming creativity and violence. Commander Vasquez told me something before I left. She said that humans have a saying, do not mistake our kindness for weakness. Do not mistake our patience for acceptance of wrongdoing. And never ever mistake our desire for peace as an inability to fight. What do you recommend, General? Thrace asked. Vornkai looked directly at the council. I recommend we contact the humans immediately. Offer them full membership in the Galactic Council. Give them every benefit of civilization. Share our technology, our knowledge, our resources. Make them our friends because the alternative is unthinkable. He paused and tears actually formed in his eyes. The council members watched in shock as the greatest military commander in known space openly wept. If we make enemies of the humans, if we push them into a corner where they believe they must fight for survival, they will tear this galaxy apart, and they will do it with mining equipment and baking supplies. The session ended in chaos. Some representatives wanted to quarantine the humans immediately. Others wanted to study them. A few wanted to learn from them. Arguments erupted across the chamber. Thrace called for order and finally achieved silence. We will send a diplomatic mission to make contact with Earth's government. We will offer friendship and alliance, and we will pray that they accept because General Vornkai is right. We cannot afford to have the humans as enemies. The council dispersed, but the debate continued through every communication channel in the galaxy. News of the human tactics spread rapidly. Military commanders studied the battle footage. Psychologists analyzed the human mindset. Scientists examined the death world that had produced such determined survivors. And in a small asteroid colony in Sector 7, Commander Elena Vasquez sat in her office, looking at casualty reports. 37 dead, over 100 wounded, billions in destroyed equipment. She closed her eyes and allowed herself one moment of grief before returning to work. Her second-in-command entered. Commander, we are receiving messages from all over the galaxy. Other species want to know our tactics. Some want to hire us as mercenaries. Others want to study us, Vasquez sighed. Tell them we are not interested. We are miners, not soldiers. We fought because we had to. We won because we had no choice, and if someone attacks us again, then we will fight again, Vasquez replied simply. And we will win again. Not because we are better warriors, but because we are better survivors. That is what Earth taught us. Survive first. Victory comes later. The galaxy was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The galaxy learns to cry. The diplomatic mission arrived at Earth 3 weeks after the council session. 5 ships carrying representatives from the major galactic powers approached the blue and green planet with a mixture of curiosity and dread. They had studied every piece of information about humans, watched the battle footage dozens of times, and prepared extensive psychological profiles. Nothing prepared them for what they found. Earth's defensive perimeter detected them immediately. Within minutes, human ships surrounded the diplomatic fleet. Not warships, cargo vessels, civilian transports, even what appeared to be pleasure craft. Every single one had been modified with weapons. The diplomats realized with growing horror that the entire human species had militarized itself. Ambassador Thrace led the delegation. His crystalline form reflected the lights of the command center as he stood before a viewing screen. A human face appeared. It belonged to Secretary General Michael Torres. the elected leader of Earth's unified government. "Welcome to Earth," Torres said warmly. "We apologize for the escort, but we have learned to be cautious with unexpected visitors. Please proceed to Landing Zone 7. We have prepared accommodations for your delegation." The landing was uneventful, but the diplomats noticed details that disturbed them. The spaceport had civilian and military sections side by side. Children played in parks that were within sight of missile batteries. Schools were built with reinforced walls. Every human they saw moved with a casual awareness that suggested military training. The council chamber where they met was designed for diplomacy, but could clearly serve as a bunker. Thrace noticed the thick walls, the multiple exits, the emergency supplies stored in plain sight. Humans built everything with warfare in mind. Secretary General Torres greeted them personally. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore a simple suit with no weapons visible, but Thrace had learned enough about humans to know that meant nothing. "Thank you for coming," Torres said. "We understand our actions in Sector 7 have caused concern. We want to assure the galactic community that Earth seeks only peace and cooperation." Thrace spoke carefully. "Secretary General, we have observed your tactics. Your people fight in ways we have not seen in thousands of years. We are concerned about the implications." Torres nodded slowly. "I understand. May I show you something?" He led them through the government complex to a museum. "The Museum of Human Conflict," the sign read. Inside were artifacts from thousands of years of warfare. Primitive stone weapons, ancient swords and armor, firearms from various eras, tanks and aircraft, nuclear weapons. Each display included casualty figures. "This is our history," Torres said quietly. "We have been killing each other since before we had written language. Every advance in technology became a weapon. Every discovery was militarized. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times." "Then why continue?" asked Ambassador Kellis. "Why not abandon warfare entirely?" "Because we cannot forget," Torres replied. "Our planet tried to kill us. Then we tried to kill each other. We learned that survival requires constant vigilance. Peace is wonderful, but peace maintained by helplessness is temporary. Peace maintained by strength is lasting." The tour continued. They saw memorials to wars the diplomats had never heard of. Conflicts that killed millions. Battles that destroyed entire cities. The humans remembered it all. They taught their children about warfare not to glorify it, but to ensure they never forgot the cost. "We want peace," Torres said. "We desperately want peace. But we will never be helpless again." The diplomatic mission's purpose was to offer humanity a place in galactic civilization. But first, the major powers insisted on a demonstration. They wanted to teach humans proper civilized warfare. They wanted to show that their primitive tactics would not work against trained military forces. The proposal was a joint training exercise. Human military cadets against instructors from the 5 major powers. No live weapons, simulation equipment only. A controlled environment where everyone could learn from each other. Torres agreed with one condition. "Our people fight the way we fight." No restrictions on tactics. The galactic instructors were confident. They had trained millions of soldiers across hundreds of species. They were the best military minds in known space. How difficult could it be to teach some Deathworlders the proper way to conduct warfare? The exercise took place in a large simulation facility on Earth's moon. The scenario was simple. The human cadets would defend a position against an attacking force of instructors. Standard military doctrine said the defenders would establish fortifications, set up overlapping fields of fire, and prepare for a prolonged engagement. The human cadets were young men and women barely out of their teenage years. They wore standard training uniforms and carried simulation weapons. They looked nervous and excited. The instructors felt almost sorry for them. Colonel Vresh of the Karveth Empire commanded the instructor force. He had trained soldiers for 60 years. He knew every tactical manual ever written. He watched the human cadets scramble to their defensive position and shook his head. Poor formation, inadequate coverage. These youngsters had much to learn. The exercise began. The instructor force advanced using proper tactical formations. They moved with precision, covering each other, advancing by sections. It was textbook perfect. Then the humans disappeared. One moment they were visible in their defensive position. The next moment they were gone, vanished. Resh was confused but not concerned. Clearly the cadets were trying to hide. His forces had thermal sensors, motion detectors, and surveillance drones. There was nowhere to hide, except the humans were not hiding. They were moving. The instructors discovered this when simulation grenades started exploding in their rear positions. The humans had somehow circled around behind them while remaining undetected. Impossible, Vresh muttered. Our sensors would have detected movement. The human cadets had covered themselves in thermal blankets that masked their heat signatures. They had moved during moments of maximum noise to hide sound. They had crawled through drainage ditches that the sensors were not monitoring. All of this information was available in the briefing materials. But the instructors had not thought to check drainage ditches because no civilized soldier would crawl through sewage. The instructor force split to deal with the rear attack. This was the moment the humans had been waiting for. More cadets appeared from hiding positions that should not have existed. They had concealed themselves inside walls, under floors, even buried underground with breathing tubes. They attacked from every direction at once. The instructors tried to regroup, but the humans refused to fight in any organized way. They attacked in small groups, retreated before the instructors could respond, then attacked again from different angles. They used smoke grenades to block sensors. They made noise in one direction to draw attention, then attacked from another. They even threw rocks to trigger the instructors' motion sensors and create false targets. Within 20 minutes, the instructor force was in complete disarray. Within 40 minutes, they had lost the exercise. Colonel Vresh stood in stunned silence as the simulation ended. The human cadets emerged from their various hiding spots, laughing and congratulating each other. They looked like they had fun. One of the cadets, a young woman with her hair tied back, approached Vresh. She saluted respectfully. "Good exercise, sir. You taught us a lot about standard tactical formations." Vresh's translator struggled with his response because he was speaking in fragments. "How? Where?" "Why?" The cadet smiled. "Sir, we study historical warfare. Guerrilla tactics, asymmetric warfare, insurgency, counterinsurgency. We learn that rules are guidelines for success, not requirements. When you are outgunned, you change the rules. But the hiding positions, the sensor evasion, the coordination without communication? We are trained to operate independently, sir. Every soldier is taught to think creatively. We practice what we call mission-type tactics. We are given an objective and expected to figure out how to achieve it. Our instructors deliberately put us in impossible situations to force creative thinking." Vresh needed to sit down. The other instructors were equally shaken. They had just been defeated by children using tactics that violated every principle of modern warfare. The galactic military academies demanded a full briefing. Earth sent Professor James Chen, a military historian who specialized in human conflict. He appeared before a gathering of over 1,000 military professionals from dozens of species. Chen was an elderly man who walked with a cane. He looked harmless. He was about to traumatize an entire generation of galactic military leadership. "Thank you for inviting me," Chen began. "I understand you want to learn about human military tactics. I should warn you that this will be disturbing. Human warfare is not civilized. It is not clean. It is not honorable by your standards. It is effective." He activated a holographic display. Images began to flow. Battles from human history. Ancient armies clashing with swords and spears. Medieval sieges that lasted years. Naval warfare where ships burned and men drowned. Trench warfare where millions died for kilometers of territory. Aerial bombardment that destroyed entire cities. Nuclear weapons that could end civilizations. The audience watched in growing horror. The sheer scale of human violence was incomprehensible. Individual battles had casualty counts higher than some species' entire populations. "This is the Battle of Stalingrad," Chen said, showing images of a destroyed city. 2 million casualties over 6 months. The soldiers fought building by building, room by room. They used snipers to demoralize the enemy. They used propaganda to break morale. They endured starvation, disease, and temperatures that killed as surely as bullets. Neither side would surrender because both believed they were fighting for survival. He showed more examples. Guerrilla warfare where civilians and soldiers were indistinguishable. Psychological operations designed to break enemy will. Economic warfare that starved entire populations. Biological and chemical weapons. Cyber warfare. Terrorism and counterterrorism. "We have fought in every environment," Chen continued. "Land, sea, air, space. We have fought in jungles, deserts, mountains, cities, and Arctic wastes. We have fought in daylight and darkness. We have fought when outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. We have always found ways to continue fighting." The audience was silent. Several beings were openly weeping. Others looked ill. A few had left the room entirely, but why? Someone finally asked. Why so much violence? Because we had no choice, Chen replied simply. Our planet was hostile. Resources were limited. Different human groups competed for survival. Those who fought effectively lived. Those who did not fight effectively died. This went on for hundreds of thousands of years. Violence is written into our genetic code. He paused and looked at the assembled military professionals. You asked to learn our tactics, very well. Here is the foundation of human military thinking. First, there are no rules except survival. Second, any object can be a weapon. Third, any tactic that works is acceptable. Fourth, deception is as important as force. Fifth, psychological warfare is more effective than physical warfare. Sixth, victory goes to whoever is willing to pay the highest price. And seventh, never assume your enemy thinks like you do. The gathering erupted in protests. This is barbarism, someone shouted. This is not warfare, it is chaos. Chen nodded. Yes, it is chaos. Because real warfare is chaos. Your civilized warfare is a luxury afforded by species who do not face existential threats. We never had that luxury. Every war was existential. Every battle was survival. We adapted or we died. He showed final images. Human soldiers helping wounded enemies. Peace treaties and reconciliation efforts. War memorials and monuments to peace. The United Nations building where former enemies now cooperated. But we also learned something else, Chen said softly. We learned that after the fighting stops, everyone loses. The victors and the defeated both pay terrible prices. We learned that cooperation is better than conflict. We learned that peace is worth fighting for. The problem is that we never forgot how to fight because we know that someone will always break the peace. Someone will always choose violence. And when they do, we must be ready. The presentation ended. The audience sat in stunned silence. Then, one by one, military officers from across the galaxy began to weep. They cried for different reasons. Some cried from horror at what they had learned. Some cried from fear of what humans represented. Some cried because they realized their peaceful galaxy was built on a foundation of mutual weakness, not mutual strength. Admiral Kelv of the Narration Defense Fleet stood up, tears streaming down his face. Professor Chen, what happens if a real threat emerges? A species that wants to conquer, not negotiate? Are we prepared? Chen looked at him with sad, tired eyes. No, Admiral. You are not. You have forgotten how to fight for survival. You have forgotten that sometimes peace is only possible when you are too dangerous to attack. But that is why we are here. If you will allow it, we can teach you. Not to be violent. Not to be cruel. But to be dangerous enough that no one dares threaten you. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. The debate lasted for 3 days. Some species wanted nothing to do with human tactics. They found the entire concept morally repugnant. Others recognized the necessity. The galaxy was large, and somewhere out there a real threat might exist. In the end, they voted to establish the Deathworlder Studies Program. It would be voluntary. Species that wanted to learn human tactics could send their military personnel to train with Earth's instructors. Those who preferred to maintain their civilized warfare could do so. 57 species immediately applied to the program. Within a year, that number grew to over 100. Small species that had been bullied by larger neighbors suddenly had options. Colonial militias that had been helpless against pirates became dangerous opponents. Defense forces that had been symbolic became genuine deterrents. The final scene of this chapter in galactic history took place in a training facility on Mars. General Vorn Kai of the Karveth Empire stood in full-dress uniform before a class of young officers from a dozen different species. He was there to share his experience fighting humans. I have commanded armies for 2 centuries, Vorn Kai began, his voice steady but emotional. I have won hundreds of battles. I believed I understood warfare. Then I met the humans, and I learned that I understood nothing. He activated a display showing the Battle of Sector 7. The young officers watched with fascination as humans turned mining equipment into weapons of war. What you are about to learn will disturb you, Vorn Kai continued. It will challenge everything you believe about proper military conduct. You will question whether this knowledge is worth having. And then, if you are wise, you will realize that this knowledge is essential for survival. He paused and looked at each student. The humans taught me to cry. They taught me fear. They taught me humility. And they taught me that survival sometimes requires doing things that civilized beings find unacceptable. If you cannot accept this, leave now. No judgment, no shame. Some of us are not meant for this path. No one left. Every student stayed, eager to learn the impossible tactics that had defeated the greatest military force in the galaxy. In her office on Earth, Commander Elena Vasquez received a report about the training program's success. She smiled sadly. They were learning. The galaxy was adapting. Perhaps now there would be real peace built not on mutual helplessness but on mutual respect. Her aide entered. Commander, we have detected several new species making contact with the galactic community. Some are peaceful. One appears aggressive, Vasquez nodded. Keep monitoring and prepare defensive plans. Just in case, just in case. Those two words summed up human philosophy perfectly. Hope for peace. Prepare for war. Never be helpless again. The galaxy had learned to cry. Now it was learning to fight. And in the process, it was becoming stronger than it had been in thousands of years. The humans had given the galaxy a terrible gift. The knowledge that peace required the ability to wage war, that safety required danger, that civilization required the capacity for controlled barbarism. It was a lesson the galaxy would never forget, taught by teachers who had learned it through millions of years of desperate survival on a planet that refused to let them die easily.